Sorry if I sound weird. I have my entire household has the cold.
Oh,
So
fantastic. Well, that
yeah,
goes along with fall and game season, doesn't it?
yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat. In his way, the meat cutter is an artist. Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality.
Well,
All right.
my name is Shane Smith. I took over as the Koch catalog sales manager last November. Had a background in food production, sanitation, so I used to travel all across the U.S. and go into production facilities and teach them how to get them clean and bacteria free and all those kind of fun things. And had an opportunity to come join Bunzl Processor here in Riverside, Missouri, and took over the customer service team that takes all the inbound calls from a lot of the game season folks because they're the ones that trust us to provide them the products they need this time of year. So was very fortunate to take on a great team and have added some new team members. And so we field calls every day from multiple sizes of facilities, anybody from a single person trying to process a deer game season all the way up to 20 or 30 employee processors doing 8 to 10 a day. So been very fortunate to join a great organization. Excited about this time of year. As you know, the weather's starting to change and the velvet's off the rack. So a lot of people are out picking their spots.
Yeah, definitely. Here in Washington, duck season opened up last Saturday at 6 a.m. and I live on the water, and I could hear them already.
Oh yeah,
as soon as 6 rolled around, I could hear all the hunters on their duck boats and everything like that.
it's
So,
it's it's that time of year. Everybody's vacations are over. All the kids are back in school, and so it's fun to watch the mindset change. I grew up in Kansas City, just outside in a little small farm community, and just the conversations would change from fall football to have you got your stand set up? Hey, I saw some rubs, and it's starting to get that time of year. It's exciting.
yeah, and one thing too is because it is the busiest time of year for processors. So it's really unfortunate for like a lot of my staff to juggle because they also like to hunt
Oh,
and
sure.
travel.
That's right.
So it's like, all right, so you could have this day off. You could, and then of course when they get something, I work in a USDA facility that also does some custom exempt that they always want to bring it back. And I'm
Oh,
like,
sure.
yeah, I was like, all right, well, bring it on the weekends, and I want that make it look like it didn't happen.
That's
On
right.
Monday.
Well, they say what
Um,
Super Bowl Sunday and opening day of deer and elk season are usually the least productive times of the year.
yeah,
More flu happens those couple weekends on that Monday after, and then the opening day. So kind of fun
yeah.
stuff.
Um, so I want to walk through this scenario to see so someone harvests a deer, right? And they're
Sure.
a small processor, and they just what are things that you Bunzl could offer that they're sitting there and they just field dressed it, and now what could you guys do to ensure that person has a good the best outcome with that
Absolutely.
animal?
Well, and I think the thing that kind of sets us apart a little bit is we invest way before that shot's ever taken. We are one of the few companies that actually put together a game season catalog that has
Hmm.
already gone out, and so I'm sure you've seen your copy of it.
Yeah.
But what we've done is we've kind of focused on the entire process. So anything from cold weather boots to gloves to masks, any cold weather gear you might need while you're sitting out there waiting. We have all the different things from carts to knives to anything. We even have a game season kit that we provide as you can either purchase it outright, which even has rib spreaders, all the things that a person is going to go that actual success of that processing doesn't start when you take the shot. You have to have some preparation ahead of time. So whether it's casings or the camouflage, the bags that might be used to put your ground in, all of those are things that we focus on, during the summer to make sure that we have the supplies, make sure that we have it in print so you can order it. My team's ready to take those calls. And then we try to make sure that the processor who wants to wait till that last minute is not sitting there going, oh, well, I'm not going to have this for 6 weeks. Well, no one's really got a big enough freezer typically to hang a 300-pound buck in to hold for a few weeks. So if they do decide to wait till that last minute, we want to make sure it's there on the shelf ready to go. And then we've worked with AC Legs to make sure that we've got quality seasonings. We work with all the different bag companies to make sure we have the supplies they need. We work with the casings folks, and then make sure that the folks know that they can get in the catalog. They can order one knife if they need one knife because they've lost theirs or something. We really try to understand the challenges that the little single processor goes through way before it ever gets to that morning where you go out and get that buck, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's so crucial because you see, it's like mise en place. It's the old, it's a chef term that you need everything in its place, right?
That's right.
And so that the planning should start in an ideal situation before you go hunting. You should,
right.
If you're going to process it yourself, you guys supply everything for the single processor, and if it's going to a game processing shop, then they would also benefit because you need luggers to separate inedible product from edible to offal to many different things. So and with the color coded luggers, you could help with that. And then what I like is that you have with the seasonings and the fibrous casings that people could make their own summer sausage. And with that hand crank stuffer, which I'd recommend that any small processor or any home processor get, is you can use that small hand crank to stuff your chub bags for your not for sale game, which is great because also I just love the camo, the aesthetic.
yeah makes you feel like you're really out there in the wild, a survivalist. That's right. Yeah
And then they and those things are great for just sewing at home, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to only use it during deer season, because I'm sure if you're hunting and you love processing, that you could utilize the stuffer, the casings, the seasoning throughout the year when it comes to, with the economy and people trying to save money, go out and buy a whole chuck, go out, buy a whole, and then experiment, make your own sausage. And
we're finding more and more people that, and due to COVID, actually, people are trying to find ways to be more self-sufficient. And as you know, being a processor, the industry itself has really exploded to the point where, as we talk to a lot of our small processors, they're into 2023 for a lot of their processing dates because there's been such a hunger for people to get more of that freedom to say, I want to be able to go and get it from my freezer and not get it from, the store, even though they can take some planning and some thought process to do that, because you may have to buy a steer, or you may have to find someone that's got a quarter that they're able to share. And what we found as our business has grown is we have to be a little more, I want to say, flexible with some of the things that we look at, because we're getting to come into the Thanksgiving season. So there's a lot of people processing hams right now. And so you better have your ham nets available, and you better have all the things ready. So we have to really make sure that we're viable enough that we can move as the seasons do, to make sure that we're stocking. And we have a really great purchasing team that what they do is they forecast for a lot of these things. So they say, well, how do you know how many camouflage bags are you going to use? Well, you look at a lot of our history and we say, well, last year at the same time, we sold X number of camo bags. Let's bump that to make sure we can meet the need this year. So we're hoping to have that where you don't get a lot of back orders. And so if you do need it, it's there waiting for you. But what we have also found is that a lot of the processors, through everything that's happened, want to kind of do it just in time. They don't have that. I can throw $1,000 at supplies and let them sit on my shelf all year. They need to be very, let's turn it quick. And their forecasting is getting more and more important. So we've really tried to help a lot of businesses grow. And when we see people that are out trying to get grants, we work very diligently to make sure that they're getting the most bang for their buck. So we've always said, hey, if you find something that's going to impact your business, give us a call, because we'll meet or beat almost anybody's pricing on anything. So we want to make sure that not only are they getting quality, but it's a good investment on their part. And when it comes to game season, especially, you may not use that again for a year. So let's not get crazy and buy a whole bunch of stuff that's going to collect dust for the rest of the year. So get some ones and twosies, and let's buy it as you need it, not feel like you have to buy a full case of something if that doesn't fit. Even you'd mentioned spices. We're happy to sell them one bag of spice to do 25 pounds if that's what makes sense.
Nice.
But then if they need a case, we're going to sell them that as well too. So we try to really help and get to know the customer a little bit so we can help them meet their needs. And it's been fun. I've talked to a lot of folks, and I always like to share an experience. One of my first orders I ever took at Bunzel last November was a gentleman that called up and said, I have a lady that just dropped off a 600-pound hog, and she wants the whole thing in summer sausage. And I went to look at my shelf, and he said, I had one bag of summer sausage seasoning. He goes, I don't think that's going to do a 600-pound hog. And he goes, and I don't want her mad at me, so can you get one out the door? So, you can find a lot of fun stories if you listen.
Yeah. And one thing too is people forget about is when, especially with summer sausage, when you said hog and summer sausage, it just sparked something in my head, because people love deer summer sausage, but it's lean. But if you also hunt hog, or if you also buy a hog, save that back fat, right? So you can add
great idea.
So you could add it to that summer sausage, so you could give it a little bit more flavor. You get a bit, and also just make it so it's more volume, so it lasts longer.
Oh boy, yeah. And you want to get in a fist fight, tell someone you don't have what they need to make their special family recipe summer sausage. Boy, that's then you're gonna hear it from both sides.
Yeah. Where I work, we have a small retail store, and we save up. We started saving up back fat about 4 months ago, anticipating the hunting season. So
that's a great idea.
And I just you guys offer stuff for people who want a smoke product. The netting is huge. It also reminded me I need a new horn too.
Sure.
And but what how many people would you say, but what do you think your big demographic is? Is it the single person, or is it these shops, the game processing shop?
It some of it really kind of depends on the time of year. So we really see, especially in the spring, we see a lot of the more consistent shops. So you'll have more of the people trying to get ready for the summer. So we see a lot of processing. In the fall, we'll see a lot more of the individuals, because again, we're getting more into the game season. So there's more, hey, I want to do one deer or one hog for the holidays or something like that. Bunzel's really kind of a dual organization, where we have the processor side, which actually deals with some of the larger entities. So the 25 and up processors who maybe need someone to hold their hand a little more often and might buy a pallet of vinyl gloves. In our Koch department, our core value, we have about 14,000 active customers, and most of them are the $500-600 a year customers that are buying just enough to process it themselves, or do a deer season processing, or somebody that maybe just needs some coaching on, hey, I want to try a new knife, or I want to try a new seasoning. So we're happy to help them find what's really in their wheelhouse. So I would love to have any customer that wants to buy a single knife, whether they get it from our website or call us directly, all the way up to somebody that does maybe 5 or 10 a week, that say, hey, we need, everything from 1 pound not for sale ground beef bags to I need some vacuum sealing bags, or we even do shrink wrap bags. And those we make ourselves, our vacuum bags here in Kansas City. So they're American made bags, they're high quality, and it's just as important. And we try to tell our folks when they say, well, we can find them cheaper somewhere else. And we said, sure, but think of the investment somebody puts in to go out and get a game season, whether it's an elk or a deer or even a hog for the holidays. And the processor, the one they trust to put that special product into a bag and send it home with them, the last thing they want is for it to pop out the bottom, or they get it home and it sits in the freezer and it explodes because it hasn't been a quality bag with maybe even a rip protector, or, a shrink bag that maybe doesn't form correctly, and now you've got air pockets. Those are the kind of things that we try to invest in because we know what an investment that prospect or that customer has in getting that from either the field or the processor to their freezer. So quality is always a really big point of focus for us, whether it's one person buying, one case of camo bags to put their, they've ground it at home and used a hand stuffer, to the processor that needs a sheared casing because he's gonna run 1,000 pounds through a week of some sort of sausage or something like that. So, and that was a long-winded answer, but we take all comers, but our sweet spot, the ones we love, are more of the smaller processors for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I get this all the time, because there's so much grant money being available and being released that people are novice, who had custom exempts, want to take it up to the next step, and they just don't know how to when it comes to saving money or when it comes to doing quality.
Sure.
And hearing those hearing that with the bags and everything, because some people maybe like look at your catalog and be like, well, they may not be suited for my needs because I'm so small. And
sure.
But knowing that you have a dedicated team who will walk them through the experience without the idea of overselling or anything like that, just making them happy, is great. And then the single processor, like the individual, like if you're out there, don't use your Sports Pro whatever dressing knife that you get. Go out there and get a siding knife or a lamb skinner from one of those NX Pro ones, because those are going to change your game. And then you also got to think about safety and PPE. A lot of people don't like. I really don't like. I've been in processing and slaughter and harvesting my entire life, but I still don't like having blood on my hands, so I always have gloves on.
That's right. Or paper cuts or knife nicks because you haven't worn a cut resistant glove, or and a good quality apron. And it goes back to what you were talking about. Is we invest a lot of time helping our customers know. We have, for example, we have a Jarvis saw specialist. We have someone that, you mentioned someone wants to step their game up and they want to get a splitter saw, or they want to get something that they've never had before, or, a humane stunning education where they want to be able to stun humanely. We have experts and actually category specialists that can walk them right through what's best fit for your team. Somebody says, well, I want the biggest saw I can get. Well, the problem is you got to fight that thing all day long. And if that's not a good fit, we're not shy to say, hey, we're not selling you an $8,000 saw. We need to sell you a $600 saw because that's what fits. And, by having that experience in those team members, we don't want you to regret your experience. And I always try to tell the story, if you go to try to do a small ribeye with a sword, how what's the quality? Maybe that's not the right tool. You look cool doing it, but let's find what actually fits your processing. So we do have a ton of people on staff, whether it's a packaging specialist, a knife specialist. We have a gentleman, his whole focus is to make sure you get into the right knife. So we always encourage people to ask for that expertise, and it doesn't cost anybody anything but the question. So I love your point, though. It's like you said, a Skinner knife. A lot of times, people go, "I'm not doing any skinning." Well, maybe still may be the best fit for what you're doing. Let's put you in the
Mhm.
right gear.
Yeah. I just had this vision in my head that someone's using like a Buster 5
That's
to,
right.
to split a 20-pound lamb carcass or
Oh,
something like
yeah.
that.
And they wonder why they go home and their shoulders are all sore, and then they got to get a
Yeah.
balancer that they really didn't need. And yeah, it's funny, but sometimes they want to go big or go home, and it's just not the right fit. That's
Yeah.
always told.
Yeah.
You don't need a tank to commute back and forth to your office job, but it sure would be cool doing it. But
Yeah. One thing I always, when I add equipment, you gotta think of like, oh, this saw now needs water. Is it three phase? Is it
right.
single phase? And it's just more. I'm glad that you guys could answer those questions before. It's not like uh people just order something, they show up, and it's like, now what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you not know how to use it. And it's just, we want to invest in the success of the people that do business with us. And sometimes that's just investing in the knowledge, because we try to support a lot of organizations. We try to support AMPed, and we do a lot of educational things that will help processors get better. I see a lot more and more colleges that are investing in meat labs, but it's something that I think the future is so strong in this industry, because more and more people want that food security, and the best way to do that is raise it, process it, put it in your freezer, know it's there. But it takes professionals like you and others to do that. I mean, you can mess stuff up pretty quick if you don't invest in the knowledge side of it. So that's why it's important, I think, a lot of times for some of the smaller processes just getting started to go to the trade shows and talk to some of the people that are doing it, and invest in things like you're doing here with podcasts, because you can get a lot of questions answered that will save you a lot of heartache in the long run. And these are expensive projects.
Yeah.
If you burn up a saw, that's not cheap. So let's make sure it's got the right power source and all that as well. So
Yeah. And one thing too is when you go to these trade shows, and if you're starting a new processing plant, or if you're upgrading, always have an open mind,
you bet.
because there you don't want to be stuck because you saw something one way. And it took me a long time to learn that I don't know everything, but
Sure.
now I embrace it. When I don't know something, I'm like, it's okay to ask for help, and
You
to
bet.
ask experts for their opinion. Because I think people are timid on that, because they don't want to perceive, especially in this industry, people want to know everything, blah blah
You
blah.
bet.
Um,
Well, and there's
and
been such
but
an attitude of protecting.
recently, I so
No, go
oh,
ahead,
go ahead.
Travis. I'm sorry, you were cutting out. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you go. I was just coughing.
Oh, no, okay. No, I said, and in the past, there's always been such a protective nature that nobody wanted you to get behind their door. They didn't want you to see what they were doing, because they had their way of doing it. And I think that's really changed, where now it's more of a community. So everybody's wanting to help everyone else, because there's so much volume out there that no one's missing out on any business. And if they can create a more secure and educated community, I think it just bodes well for the future of the business itself. So I think that's a huge point you made about asking people, well, how do you do it? And you'll find much more receptive hosts now than you've ever seen before, because it's not a competition fighting for the pounds. There's more pounds than can be processed. So I think it's a beautiful time to really learn and make this an excellent industry.
Yeah, and it's great because I'll be on this Facebook group, these small processors or these game processing, and people will show I just built this cooler and I'm getting
Right,
ready for this,
right.
and it's like, now what? And it's like, well, you need how are we going to hang them in the
That's
cooler?
right.
How are you
Yeah,
going to do this? And now they need hooks, and they need
carts
game
and
rolls, and they
everything else. That's
need
right.
carts and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, and you guys have that. And one thing, last season, um, because my plant just periodically just orders a bunch of stuff through you guys. And you guys had that field dressing kit that once you hit that monetary amount, I started giving those out to my employees.
Oh, perfect.
And I'm like, well, like I got enough so I could make sure that no one felt left out.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and what you're referring to, just
explain.
Yeah, so what you're referring to is in our game season catalog, we understand that it's a huge investment to get those supplies. So what we've done is anyone that spends over $500, we're going to give them free freight. So as you're kind of piling things together, once you get to that $500 mark, we're not charging freight at all. And then as you increase your spends, if you can put more things together, we have some things like a game field dressing kit. We have some axes. We have some other things that we're going to throw in just as a loyalty, thank you gift for buying product from us during game season. And that's all, just kind of dependent on what you spend. And if you don't make it to that mark, we're going to help try to find things that maybe you hadn't thought of that you can get you to that mark. Like, hey, by the way, do you need any tape? Or, because you're going to need some cold weather tape, or how about locker paper, or something that maybe you didn't think about, and you're going to call us back next week and go, oh, you know what I forgot to order? So as we're talking to the clients, we're saying, hey, listen, you're only about $40 away from that free freight or from your appreciation gift. So, we're not going to try to get you off the phone right away. We're going to say, hey, let's think through everything you might need over the next couple of weeks, because if we throw it on, it's really kind of a benefit to you. So we may ask you, hey, how are you doing on your cotton gloves? Or how are you doing on your vinyl gloves? Or do you need any more totes? Because totes are on sale for $10 a piece or something like that. So we're really trying to help incentivize everybody to make sure that they're getting what they need when they need it. And then if you do invest your dollars with us, we want to reward you with some gifts. And it's kind of funny. I have it here, so it's going to be hard to see because it's got green in the background. But if you flip through our thing, so there's a whole page of giveaways for when you get to a certain spend with us. So they can always check it out and just ask us, and we're happy to communicate that.
Yeah. And we have a benchmark at my store that we want to hit that free freight line, because
every time
just a little bit shy. And like, I just want to talk about, like, so I want to start processing my own deer at home. This is say if you're listening and that's what you want to do.
Yes.
You have your deer. What do you need? You need a cutting table, right? You need, it could be a small table if it's just for yourself. You need luggers to put the product. You may need an edible barrel to put the scrap in. There's different rules when it comes to spine and depending what part of the country you live in with deer that you have to dispose of.
You bet.
Or what is it, scrapies? And then, so you got it off the bone, you got your cuts, you got your back straps, you got your tenderloins. You're gonna, if you're doing it at home, you're gonna want to use locker paper. So maybe use a PVC film first, and then you have that great camo paper or the classic white paper.
You bet. And
that
tape
just brings up nostalgia. Yeah, and that freezer tape, so you could write what it is. And if you use something like, oh, I just got regular white tape, no, you really need that freezer tape. Because stuff isn't those. Yeah, because it's not designed to go in the freezer, but this stuff it is. And then from there, with your trimmings, you're gonna need, fibrous casings for smoking. You're gonna need that stuffer to get it into that casings. And if you got grind or sausage, you're going to need that stuffer to get those into that chub bags. They have the camo chub bags that say not for sale in the game, and you can check off. This is cool about the bags, right? So
you bet.
If you could check off the species and then write the pounds.
And it's important to note, as you mentioned all those things too, it can sound really overwhelming. So what we'll see a lot of times is people each year will invest in a few more things to get them to that point where they're there. But we're not afraid to sell one box of bags. We're not afraid to sell one or two rolls of tape. So especially for the home butchers, sometimes it can get a little overwhelming because they think, oh man, this is a $5,000 deer. Well, it doesn't really have to be, because we're really very cognizant that, maybe you need to buy one $20 knife this year, and then next year you might buy another $20 knife. And you don't have to get to that $500 level. You can buy one or two things and just kind of build your stock as you go. Because the bags will save for next year. You know what I mean? Use them this year and then put them in a safe place and save your tape for next year. So it's kind of like you mentioned, there can be so many different things that we don't want them to feel overwhelmed and then go, well, it's not even worth the effort, or it's just way too expensive. It really doesn't have to be. And to me, it's almost as much the joy of being able to say, hey, I did that myself. It's kind of a pride factor sometimes. So don't get intimidated by thinking you got to go throw a whole bunch of money at it. If you got to buy the onesie twosies, buy one bag of jalapeno venison seasoning. You can buy one bag to do 25 pounds if that's what you want to do. So there can be a lot of things you have to add to your mix as you go forward, but don't be shy. Call and ask, and we're happy to sell one roll of tape if that's what it's going to take to get through the season. But it's like you mentioned, if you don't have those things, just a simple thing like a good broom, because typically a lot of times where people clean those deer or they do a lot of that processing, they don't have a good hose, they don't have a good faucet, they don't have a sink where they can wash off on, and now the wife's like, well, why are you doing that? Or the husband's saying, honey, I got your deer processed. And so it can be one of those things where those little things will add up. And until you get in and do it, sometimes you don't realize what you need until you don't have it. Give us a call. We can have it there in a couple of days and, throw it in the freezer and then get your bags. In a couple of days, you're ready to go again. So it's a fun process, but it can be daunting if you don't, if you don't prepare a little bit. So now's the time to give us a call.
And also, if you're out there and you're listening and you're a hunter, hunters usually know other hunters. Maybe your friend could you go in on this stuff and you guys process each other's deer, or, make it a more friend community event, because it's like, well, we could share this because we go hunting. The three of us go hunting every season. So let's just go to, Tim's house every season, and then we could do this. His wife gets mad. Let's take all this to my house,
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Next year we're doing it at Bob's house because I got kicked out of my house. That's right. That's right.
And I think that would be a great approach because, hunters tend to know other hunters who also need the same resources. So,
and you mentioned duck season. The vacuum bags, if you had any kind of vacuum sealer, or even, a lot of the seasonings that we do, all those can be for multi-game type products too. Simple things like Ziploc bags. A lot of people just want to throw them in there and Ziploc them and throw them in the freezer. We sell Ziploc bags, or we sell, multiple things that you could use for all of those situations. So it doesn't just have to be, deer or elk. It can be wild hog. We are a big supplier to the seafood industry. So there's, if you go up and you get a salmon up north, I know they run some salmon up there on the river by you guys. All of those are things that we can provide, whether it doesn't necessarily have to be just big game. It can be simple things like, salmon runs, if you want to process that and throw that in the freezer. So there's a lot of things that we try to help with, just the sportsman in general, whether and again, it's all about food security, going out and enjoying the moment and spending that time with your family or friends, and then reaping the benefits of that effort by having it in the freezer or the refrigerator, or, even wild turkey. What a great thing to do a little beer batter turkey over Thanksgiving that you went out and shot a wild turkey with. So all of those are things we'd love to help with.
Yeah. And even if you have so you invest a couple $100 and you have your cut table, your good knives and your stuffer and your wrapping paper, right? So
absolutely.
Think about how the food culture is changing in America. You could go out to your local store, buy a whole untrimmed chuck roast, buy a whole top sirloin, buy a whole ribeye, process it yourself, and you're saving,
Oh,
400, or you're saving $100 on each of those primals, providing for your family with that trimmings. You could make either render it down to tallow if it's fat, or you could grind it for sausage. But now you have the surface to cut on, you have the knives to do it, and the way to wrap it.
you bet.
So that investment can continue it to save you money,
You bet.
and make it self-sufficient, give you a sense of pride, give it a sense of like, I did this for my family, etc.
And it's good eating.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than throwing a couple of steaks you process yourself, whether it's venison or beef or a pork chop or something, and fixing it yourself there at home and sitting down, and it's just there's nothing like that satisfaction, that's for sure.
Yeah. And again, it's just, right now we need community. So I think it's really important to invite the Tims and Bills over, and
absolutely,
and just have that sense of, my grandfather would tell me these stories growing up in Southern California in the 1950s, that they would go hunting in what used to be the Kern River Valley before it turned into a lake. And my mom and my grandpa would say that going down San Pedro in the 1950s and 60s in deer season, every other house would have a buck hanging in the garage, and people would walk over, talk about the bucks. People would be drinking beers. People would be helping each other.
Absolutely.
And it'd just be great to see that happen again. It's just that just seems like a great part of American history, and I'd love to see it continue, and people who haven't experienced that to try to make it happen, because it's a great event. It's a harvest,
You bet. And other than their secret spots, you will not find a more friendly, useful group of people than people that get up at 4:00 in the morning to get out to their stands, and you see them at the Quick Trip in their camo, grabbing their cup of coffee and heading off to their spot. They'll all tell you hi, but they won't tell you where they're going. So you got to protect a few things. But I remember growing up, one of the few memories I had too, and you mentioned that community, was I grew up in a farming community west of Kansas City, and we raised some Black Angus. We had a few, kind of a small farm. And I remember one afternoon, my dad came home from work and my mom both had worked, and we had a cow that had tried to eat a hedge apple, and they don't go very far. And so we called Grandpa and Grandma and the neighbor and Mom and Dad and everyone, and they grabbed it and took it to the barn, and everybody helped, and they processed it. It wasn't going to go to waste. You didn't have the money to just let something like that go to waste. So as a community, you all pitched in and helped out and shared in the spoils. I mean, everybody got a quarter, and everybody, had some beef. Now, you hated to lose a cow, but you weren't going to let it go to waste. And, I think I see that today. You mentioned the Facebook post. I can't tell you how many times I see somebody will say, hey, I've got a quarter for sale, or I have a half for sale, or we're getting ready to go to processing on the 20th, and I have half left. Is anyone interested? And that has just exploded over the last few years. And it warms my heart as an old farm boy to see that community coming together to make sure that everyone's taken care of. And, and especially here at BPD, we try to have that same attitude, that it's like, this is a community. We want to be a part of a community, not just a supplier. We want to hear about some of those stories. And, every month we try to do some giveaways. I think we have a customer appreciation event right now going on, where until October 1st, you can register to win like $1,000 worth of meat bags. So every month we're trying to do something to kind of give back. We gave a stretch wrapper last month, and I think the month before that was a stapler or something. So, we understand if we don't give back, we're not going to have people invested in what we do. So I love those stories, to hear about the people helping each other out. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. And those giveaways, I encourage everyone to check them out, because $1,000 in bags, if you're a small processor, is huge.
Absolutely.
One of those stretch wrap, what are they called? Stretch wrap
Yeah, it was the stretch wrap roller where you just set your little tray on top and you stretch wrap around it like you do at a grocery store, you know. So
Yeah.
you would see, and a mom and pop might not make sense, but a small processor would say that can make a huge impact on what I do because now I don't have to do it by hand. I can do it with the film roller. You just put a roll of film in there and you just roll it up.
Yeah. So I would encourage everyone to stay on top of that. And I'll end with this because we've been talking about community and everything. Um, don't the people, if you have any questions, where can people contact so they could not go into game season this year or other years blind? How could they get a hold of you or the sales
You
team?
bet. So we have really two great options. Number one is we have a website, which is bpd.com. It's bunzelbpd.com. And then it allows you just to go in and there's a chat function there where you can just ask simple questions. Or there's a contact desk. We also have an 800 number that you can call here. And I'm going to be real honest with you. I don't remember what that is because I don't have to call it. But there's an 800 number. And that's terrible. I'm going to find it here.
1-800-456-5624.
There you go. That's perfect. And just you'll get a hold of one of our catalog team and ask any question you like. And again, we have so many specialists that if you have a question about something that my team can't answer, they're going to contact our specialist and they'll call you back, or we'll just give you their number direct. And it's really important that you get those questions answered a lot of times before you spend your hard-earned money and regret doing it, because then we're not a resource, we're more of a problem. So please ask questions. We've got people willing to help. Our phone lines are manned 7 Central through 5:30 Central time. So we've got someone on the phone during those times. And then our chat function is also available on the website during those same times. And if you do want a catalog, there's 100 places you can request it. Just go online and request a catalog, and we'll be happy to send you a catalog for free.
Yeah. And if you get a catalog, you could turn to the find it quick section of further processing and you could see a picture of me.
That's right. Yeah, he's all over our book, aren't you?
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Travis, thanks for investing some time today. Enjoyed the conversation. I really enjoy, I've really acquired a passion for this industry, being involved in it over the last year. And I don't think there's better people that I've ever met or talked to than the folks that are the processing family. And especially those that are trying to get food security for their families. We're going to try to help every way we can.